The initiative taken by the Global Rainbow Foundation and the visionary thoughts and the zealous effort of Dr. Parasuraman, especially a founder and the team, is really commendable. It's a laudable, I would say. Because when you talk about disability rights in perspective, disability rights are basically human rights. And if you talk about the various generation of rights, for example, in the most advanced civil societies like America, previously discrimination, the doctor also referred about the promise made by the Mauritian government in including the term disability as a sort of discrimination to bring an amendment in the constitution itself. It's really a remarkable thing, I would say, because if you take the generation of rights, previously the discrimination against blacks in America was considered to be one of the most disastrous, barbarous thing, inhuman one in the arc of human rights. But now, since the civil society and most people vociferously came forward and raised an unanimous objection, disapproval against the society, like especially people like Martin Luther King and a few other, many other prominent leaders, they gave a clarion call across the globe. The rights, and even now the Black Lives Matter, so many other things. So now things have taken a new U-turn. Now in American jurisprudence, what they say is that now discrimination against disabled is equal or worse than that of a discrimination against black men in particular. So that's how the contours of law and the dimension has taken new shape. It has got its own paradigm shift towards that, accelerating towards such a direction. Now, if you take in India also a debate which went on in the Supreme Court and disability rights, they say that disabled people, they cut across all vertical lines. For example, irrespective of caste, creed, or religion, and the disability might happen to anyone. And for example, it might happen by congenital defect at the time of birth, or by virtue of an accident, or especially during war times. Now, in America, like the war veterans, which they call it as, and by virtue of an accident. Now, with the advancement of the, because the people are skeptical, because the way the Prime Minister of Mauritius and the government and the Mauritius president, especially the government in particular, though they have made a promise to keep up in the election manifesto, which Dr. Arumugam Parasuraman considered to be a sacrament document, because that is a sanctity, the promise that you made before the people, before the election. I'm not sure it's whether it can be enforced in a court of law in Mauritius, according to your Mauritian jurisprudence. Let me also study on it and discuss on that aspect. And for example, if it is in India, recently a case went on in the Supreme Court, Indian Supreme Court, a concept like a freebies. It's a popular mandate, a promise made by the government before coming to power. A promise, electoral promise, they would say. They say that should be curtailed, curbed. The government argued that no, it is one of the measures initiated by the government to generate or to promote the welfare activities of the people. For example, the Indian Constitution has got two dimensions. One is fundamental rights. And if you talk about the fundamental rights, Article 14 of the Constitution, in accordance with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, talks about the equality of men. Equality of men in the sense it includes men and women, or man in particular. And the creed of equality is something which is a paramount one. And everybody should be treated alike. Alike in the sense you cannot discriminate them. And Article 15 of the Constitution in particular talks about no discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. Because me and Dr. Deepak, because when we were working on that area, even 15 years back, this thing was hovering or pondering in my mind. I was pondering that aspect as to why the constitutional amendment should not be brought in India to bring a discrimination on disabilities. And that thought has taken a leap forward, way forward in Mauritius government. Of course, I'll come back to the later course of conversation. later stage as to how it has not been brought into picture. Because when we talk about, as I say, disability rights, what the society and the world community, they have to look at it is not only a problem that continues to stirred in controversy, not controversy, I would say, stirred in the problem only in the closed circle of a minority population. As I said, it might happen to anybody at any stage, any point of time. Nowadays, the old age is also a type of disability, like aging population. And more than that, with the enhancement of advanced technologies, usage of mobile, now the data have come in a shocking way that I read recently a scientific journal. It said that in another 20 years from now on, almost more than 20 to 30% of the population will lose their hearing capability because of the excessive use of technology and headphones and so many other aspects. God willing, we do not know what's going to happen in the near future, but systematically, when you have a problem, it might occur naturally or accidentally at any point of time. So, irrespective of that, how the society or the government has to be more sensitive to that is that they should be more sensitive to issues like this. For example, I am really puzzles me, amuses me as to why the government has not taken the matter of utmost seriousness, because it's at the global level. And from the bill, I could see that already Mauritius government has signed made a declaration to implement 𝐈𝐴.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So, moment an Indian constitution says, if you ratify international treaty, that becomes a part of your domestic law. I am not sure whether Mauritius constitution has an analogous or similar provision. But you can see the implications of international law, that municipal law and the international law. Internationally, when you ratify a treaty or the president of the government of Mauritius government enters into a treaty, whether it is enforceable under your Mauritius constitution, you can debate on that aspect. If that is the case, if the lack of political will continue to exist upon the government, in the last occasion I said the please pray petition, you can make a protest, you can make a, now December 3 is the day for the international event, and a petition could be presented. And I, in fact, with the organizing committee, the doctor can spearhead the moment to make a protest outside the parliament in Mauritius. If you want people from India, the global community also can be canvassed to that level to make a widespread protest, expressing your discontent, displeasure in making the government to come at a negotiating table at the quickest possible time, a sort of hunger strike or something like that. That is one aspect. Second, the judicial recourse, since the promise has been made already, if the promises are not enforced or effectively implemented by way of a law, a legal enactment, because that remains a very critical document. What we say is that once when in India also there is still we are in that gray area, gray zone, because you have got they have not amended the constitution yet, and disability rights has not been given the constitutional status. But what the government has done is that after a much prolonged battle and debate, after the Asia Pacific declaration, where India agreed to implement the international mandate, they came out with the Person with Disabilities Act 1995. And after working that law for a large number of period, 2016, the present government came out with revising the disabilities, nature of disabilities. Initially, you have got only 4 types of disabilities and 7 types of disabilities, in which reservation, for example, hearing impaired, visual impairment, and orthopedically disabled. Even now, the mental illness has not been considered in the broad spectrum. And now, with the advancement, there were certain disabilities were not included in the category. And now they have made the problem more complicated, because the law is very simple. If you got a disability in your body with more than 40%, you consider to be a disabled by getting a certificate from the government stating that a medical doctor prescribed a person is a disabled and is entitled for the certificate. This is the law, is very simple on it. Then even after getting the certificate, there are other double layers of discrimination or lack of protection on the part of the rights of the disabled. And now the present law talks about 21 types of disabilities. And now the countries like Canada, UK, where, for example, we have borrowed majority of the laws from UK, which is a common law system. And next to this, fundamental rights have been basically borrowed from US, where fundamental rights are very strict in nature. And it's a basic one, which is borrowed from American Constitution. But countries like the advanced countries, this lack of awareness, I would say, because the lack of implementation, if the government is not taking it very seriously, I think it's a disastrous one. In the sense, you don't say any proper reason to implement the rights of the person with the disabilities, especially in the global arena where there is an international gathering of momentum across the globe. And and also if it's a type of violation of international rights too. And the majority of the people, they are annihilated to the core. And especially when educated, experienced leaders like Dr. Parasuraman made up a point, critical point, to the government in raising straight to their eyes, and remaining in a dead silence or closing their eyes, it becomes a huge surprise again. And so what I would say, emphasize is that, and there are two things. One, the actual enactment of a law. The next would be the implementation of the law. And implementation is a secondary part. At least there will be some checks and balances. In a counter majority regime, or once when you have a law in place, only you can at least talk or debate or discuss or deliberate or take the government or violators or the perpetrators of injustice to the court when there is a violation of the rights. Now, we also heard Oliver an extensive and who has got some excellent academic credentials, especially from King's School. And more than that, he has got a hand-on experience in fighting. I went through his profile shortly during the meeting, because first time doctor introduced to me about Mr. Oliver, and he has represented few cases in European Commission of Human Rights and some of this in the UK Supreme Court too. And so a lot of on the angle of discrimination. So when this is a mega Herculean task, like for example, to enact a bill in the country, to debate on it, now we have made the job much easier. Like a comparative study, I think the government should be more sensitive, or instead of this lackadaisical approach. In fact, I really wonder, after this process, they should have invited Dr. Arumugham on board straight away to that because he has been a minister by himself. He doesn't need any sort of additional introduction or recognition on the part of the government. But after this process, I think, very sorry to say, this is a sorry state of affairs. But the legal community in Mauritius will have one more brainstorming session with them as to there are two ways we can work it out. That's from my perspective, which I feel. One, already doctor has taken the initiative in bringing the terms to strike a chord with the government in trying them or educating them to enact the law. But despite that, they are non-sensitive to the approach. I think doctors should immediately launch a hunger strike or protest in front of the Mauritius Parliament to put the pressure upon them, number one. Number two, again and again emphasize that, make it a critical point that there is no reason for the denial of justice to the person with the disabilities. And even after making a promise before the 𝐸1 and making it before the elections, because already they have made a promise. I think if you are not complying with the promise, it's like you also continue to take oath in the name of the people in a democratic country. And I think this is not based on there could be a possibility that the people have voted them back to power only on such the promises made. And this it can't be unfulfilling or unempty promises for n number of days. And there is no reason even to deny for a single day. Now being the International Day for the Disability, and I think you should set a deadline within this month. You can announce it as an international year for month of the disability. Is coming to a close. You should set a deadline to the government. The time is coming close to them to close the chapter by the end of this year, so that productively or positively when that when we enter into the new year, the new horizon, the new thoughts and all the vibes, the government should immediately possible, and if not judiciarily, how to make it a point, and also all the civil societies or human rights forum or group in Mauritius can be garnered together as a single collective one, make it a mandate, because as a collectively, when a collective conscience or a voice is raised irrespective of the differences among the parties, I think this is the one area, key critical area, where everybody has to be on a uniform table. I think, every people or every respective people within a respective places can meet the ministers and air their views and discontent on this issue, and not to keep it prolonging, pending even for a single minute, which is completely unjustified, unreasonable, and arbitrary, and highly illogical, and against the moral conscience of everyone.